Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Bishop Whitehead's channel and the Not Guilty podcast. Oh, my goodness. I'm so excited for being here today. But let me get a few things straight. Let me get a couple of things straight. You guys have ridiculed me. You guys have lied on me. You have done so many things to myself and my family, and I'm going to set the record straight today. So for every person that hated on me, for every person that lied on me, for every YouTuber and blogger that's been spreading my name and spreading the gospel and spreading the lies and making money off of my name, now it's my time. And this is the podcast called Not Guilty. I'm excited to be here. And I just want to say a few things about a few people before we even get started. Like DJ Envy from the Breakfast Club. Let's talk about that really quickly. You have been ridiculing me. You've been throwing me under the bus. And now you have your own federal indictment. But I'm going to talk about you a little later on. Also, Joe Buttons. You was happy, celebrating, you and your team on your podcast. They found him guilty. Listen, just because you're wrestling with your sexuality, you don't know if you want women or men, that's your fault. But we're going to talk about you a little later on as well. DL Little Man Hughley, you've been going at me for a long time. My family, my children, everybody's been seeing you ridicule me, right? It's your time now, brother. Little man DL, this goes out to you. So I'm going to hit a few people that's been talking about me. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. And then the little Larry Reed, the child molester. You've made untold money off of lying on my name. Oh, we're going to talk about you too on Not Guilty. Just because you're wrestling with your sexuality and you don't know if you want to bite a pillow or you don't know if you want to talk about the church. You don't know what you want to do. But Not Guilty, we're going to get this thing straight, y'all. Y'all know I'm the bishop, but I don't hold no punches. Not at all. Yo, you're a bishop. How you going to do that? Watch me. And this is going to be all truth with a whole lot of receipts. All right? So, and we're not even going to talk about good old, I'm going to leave that alone. We'll talk about it later on. All right, so let's get started. I am ready. Are you ready? That's the question. So, welcome to Not Guilty. My name is Bishop Lamar Miller Whitehead, and I greet you guys with the love of Jesus Christ. You guys know that I have been federally indicted and convicted for 5 counts. Here's the indictment, right? Everything that we show you on the Not Guilty podcast will be paperwork, right? Because everybody set the narrative about Bishop Lamar Whitehead as a villain and not a victim. You said I set the church robbery up. You see that I was innocent. You said now that I've been found guilty of 5 counts, which the jury found me guilty. The first count was wire fraud, $90,000 with Pauline Anderson. We're going to talk about that during the Not Guilty podcast. We have attempt wire fraud of Brandon Belmonte trying to obtain $500,000 in real estate in exchange for favors with the mayor, Eric Adams. Then we have an attempt extortion with this same person, Brandon Belmonte. We have also lying to an FBI agent. We're going to talk about that, Thomas Ford. And we also going, the last count is wire fraud. 6 years ago, they said that I filed for a application of pre-approval through a company called Fundora. So we're going to put this whole case together, and I'm going to show you why I'm not guilty. Just because you was found guilty in front of the jury does not mean that you're guilty. What does that mean, Bishop? Well, I'm so glad you asked me. The question then comes, if the prosecutors did some illegal things, didn't turn over evidence in time, You wasn't able to file the correct motions to get things suppressed. Or maybe the FBI lied on some affidavits that they covered up, which would in turn had search warrants and evidence suppressed that was illegal. So if all these things came in and the jury saw it and they found you guilty based off of illegal evidence, illegal procedures, are you still guilty? Here in America, we see a lot of black and brown men and black and brown women get their fair share of injustice, where the police officers, in my case, the FBI and the federal prosecutors, teamed up to destroy Bishop Lamar Whitehead because they wanted the mayor, Eric Adams. That's what this whole thing is about. And I'm going to break it down in its most finite parts and pieces so you can see the structure and the diabolical strategy of the federal prosecutors and the FBI. Now, all FBI agents are not wrong, are not dirty. But the ones that did everything to me was unjust. The federal prosecutors were unjust. And all they wanted to do is get higher rankings because I would not roll over, and be an FBI informant to go against the mayor, Eric Adams. He's not doing anything anyway. But yet what I've learned throughout this case, the FBI doesn't care. As long as you lie and as long as you can get the conviction, that's all that matters. And you're going to see this through the paperwork. You're going to see the lying Brandon Belmonte, who the FBI used to get into my life. And I need you to put your thinking caps on. I need you to get your notepads. And I want you to see how the federal prosecutors and the FBI set Bishop Lamar Miller Whitehead up. So here we go. In February of 2022, let's go back. January 2022, December 2021, January 2022, I was introduced to a man named Brandon Belmonte. And he stated that he does luxury rentals. And he also said that he owns an auto body shop. So he wanted to rent one of my cars. I told him, no, I don't want to do that. And one of my cars, my wife's car, was in a car accident. So I called him up and I asked him, could he fix the car? He stated to me, yes, he could fix the car and he will also give me a rental car. The rental car that he gave me was an Cadillac Escalade that was inoperable. As soon as you start the car up, it sounds like it was okay. You drive, it starts to shake. I just had my newborn baby. She was 3 months old. We began to have a conversation about him fixing the car. He picked the car up. We started to have some discussions about the car not working, the rental car. We began to argue because he hadn't started on my wife's car. We began to argue. This is towards the beginning of beginning of March. And he found out that I was into real estate. And he began to doing some studying. And now I'm talking about things that I know now. So he began to doing some studying about me, learned that I was into real estate for a long time. I owned a bunch of properties. And he started to set me up, right? He started to set me up. What are you talking about, Bishop? So my wife's car was not being fixed. It was just sitting there. And me and him will begin to argue about my wife's car. He began to tell me, don't worry, I'm going to get it fixed. He said, I own some property. I would love I would love to sell you this property. He said, I own multiple apartment complexes in the Bronx. And I said, okay, cool. Well, I'm into purchasing property. You know, I own a bunch of property. He was in a conversation. So he was using the ownership of real estate to get into my life. Now that I know what I know now, he was working with the FBI. It wasn't me that was under investigation. They wanted the mayor, Eric Adams. So now I'm talking to you guys from what I know now, but in 2022, March, April, I did not know I was being set up by Brandon Belmonte. So my wife's car continuously was not being fixed. And he told me that he will reimburse me for whatever finances I spend. So I spent about $5,000 on a rental car and other things, and he said he'll reimburse me. Now, the reason why the $5,000 is so significant is because that's count 3. Count 3 is attempt extortion of $5,000. So I want y'all to pay attention to that. I know this might sound a little slow right now, how I'm starting it off, but when I get to this paperwork, you're going to see how the FBI and the Southern District of New York, how they set the bishop up, and I was collateral damage because they wanted to take down the mayor of New York. I was second black mayor. So fast forward, we are now in April, and we're still having turmoil. I didn't know now that he was recording me. And while he was recording me from the anger of my wife's car not being fixed, him owing me money. And then he said that he wanted to sell me some apartment buildings that now that I know he never owned. He never was able to produce me any paperwork as far as the rent roll, as far as the different things that I needed to evaluate the property. And he always had excuses. Then he came to me and said, listen, me and my father own a hard money company. We want to we want you to do a loan with us, because he knew that I was renovating one of my apartment complexes. I told him no at first, but then he said, listen, I'll sell you these buildings. Let's make this thing happen. So I said, okay, cool. If you're going to sell me these buildings that you claim you own, no problem. I will allow you to do the hard money loan for $500,000. The reason why that's so significant is because count 2 is attempt wire fraud of $500,000 and real estate in exchange for favors with the mayor. I don't know I'm under investigation. And I didn't know that Brandon Belmonte and the FBI was setting me up so they can get the mayor. Why do you say that, Bishop Whitehead? Well, I know that you've been watching all these YouTubers. I know you've been watching these bloggers. I know, and this is my first podcast, y'all. I'm just a good public speaker. So therefore, I'm getting used to this. So bear with me. So I know that the YouTubers, they say that they got transcripts, and the bloggers say they got transcripts, and some of them even came to trial. And I need you to understand that is limited access to what really happened to Bishop Whitehead. There's so many black and brown brothers that are going through the same thing that I've went through, where the federal prosecutors, they create an analogy, and it's called prosecutor misconduct. But yet, if you can't identify it, you lose, and you got to get it on appeal. And this is called not guilty. So even if the jury found you guilty, you are still not guilty, because the federal prosecutors and the FBI created a whole narrative by hiding the truth and hiding the hands and manipulating the law to destroy your life. What are you talking about, Bishop? Well, I'm so glad you asked me. And all of this paperwork, we will have it on the Patreon, the Bishop's Patreon, where you can go on and you'll be able to see paperwork. So what I'm showing you, the media, not the Daily News, not the New York Times, not NBC, not CBS, not World News, not CNN. Nobody has this paperwork. And this paperwork is going to be the reason why this case will be reversed, and overturned, right? And you guys have been destroying my life because the jury was not able to see this paperwork. Well, what are you talking about, Bishop? Well, I need y'all to ask yourself the question, how did the FBI start their investigation with Bishop Whitehead? That's the question. That's the key. So you have this guy, Brandon Belmonte, who has been an informant. Hold on one second. Let me get to this paperwork. And you guys will be able to see this. He's been an informant since 2013. Brandon Belmonte. Yep. 2013. As this paperwork will tell you. He's been an informant with the FBI. And this is why, if you look at Damian Williams, who is the federal prosecutor, he's the head prosecutor in the Southern District. If you look at what he said, when he came out, when I first got arrested in December of 2022, he says that I scammed a parishioner. And he also said, I scammed a businessman. This is Damian Williams, which he already knew that this Brandon Belmonte has been an informant for almost 20 years. But yet, he calls him a businessman. Not to mention that Brandon Belmonte was just arrested last year for wire fraud and all type of frauds for insurance scams. And Damian Williams knew about all this. But the technique was to destroy Bishop Whitehead because they want the mayor of New York, Eric Adams. I need y'all to get that. So how did this whole investigation start? I want to read this to you. I want to read this paperwork to you. Because in order for them, the FBI, to get all of these subpoenas, get all these search warrants, they had to have a reason. Bishop Whitehead was not under investigation, y'all. I know you say, well, the FBI been watching him for years. It's not true. They started the investigation in 2022, in March and April of 2022. They haven't been watching Bishop Whitehead because they have nothing to watch me for. But yet this gentleman supposedly comes into their office, and this is his statement, okay? And this will be posted, all right? And like I said, no other media outlet has this. So they have to create a narrative, so therefore they can clickbait the bishop and make the bishop look like a villain. But today we're going to desensitize their guilty verdict against Bishop Whitehead. And we're going to show you today on the Bishop Whitehead's channel that Bishop Whitehead is not guilty. Say it, not guilty. Here we go. Brandon Belmonte tells the FBI that he also mentioned his endeavors in the real estate business and how he was acquainted with Eric Adams. So Brandon Belmonte is telling the FBI that I told him this. Belmonte then proceeded and said that he was getting extorted by Whitehead. Whitehead came back several days later and threatened to hurt Belmonte if he did not pay. So this is all testimony, and this is statement that got the bishop arrested for count 3, extortion. This is Brandon Belmonte going to the FBI and saying these things. Brandon Belmonte believes Whitehead plans is to acquire several properties in the New York area and bring them to Adams, which is the mayor of New York, and see where they can make some money. Now, this is all Brandon Belmonte telling this to the FBI, okay? He elaborates that Whitehead purchased a 552-unit property in Newark, New Jersey, and is currently trying to buy property in Canarsie, Brooklyn. Once the properties are acquired, Adams, the mayor of New York, will be able to help them with pricing, stop work orders, provide money for the city for construction, or city contracts. So this is Brandon Belmonte telling the FBI that the mayor of New York will help us with pricing, which means illegal pricing, stop work orders, which is removing stop work orders illegally without going through the proper channels, providing money from the city for construction and city contracts. He's saying all these things to the FBI. Belmonte stated Whitehead wants to be his partner and use his knowledge of the real estate business to make money. Why would I need Brandon Belmonte's knowledge to make money when I've been doing real estate over 20 years and I own, as you guys know, multiple properties? Brandon Belmonte is being used to lie to get into Bishop Whitehead's life. Now, you can't just get a subpoena for Bishop Whitehead's life, and you can't get search warrants to come in and search Bishop Whitehead's life without information. So therefore, the FBI is using Brandon Belmonte to lie, and knowing that he's lying, so therefore they can get into Bishop Whitehead's life to shake Bishop Whitehead down, to try to get Bishop Whitehead to get the mayor of New York. I need y'all to follow this. Belmonte stated that Whitehead told him that he has City Hall in his back pocket with his relationship to Adams. This is all testimony of Brandon Belmonte. Belmonte also stated that Whitehead told him they could turn some of the properties into homeless shelters and make them free market. So what he's saying is that I'm telling him that we're going to do something illegal. This is all testimony to the FBI from Brandon Belmonte. Y'all want to know how Bishop Whitehead got indicted? Here you go. This is it right here. Brandon Belmonte. And what he's saying is that we're going to get property from the city to do homeless shelters and get probates and rebates and different things that you get from the city when you're going to do something for the homeless or affordable housing. So he's saying that we're going to lie on the applications and that the mayor knows what's going on, but yet we're going to charge top dollar. All of that is illegal. He's telling the FBI this. Belmonte is under the understanding that according to Whitehead, Adams, the mayor of New York, will be a silent partner. See, this is what the media don't know. By paying consultants, they will secretly be paying Eric Adams. Paying an LLC will hide who the money is going to. Whitehead also mentioned how Adams and him did work together when Adams was the borough president of Brooklyn. Okay, now I want to go a little further. It says, at the end of this meeting, a AUSA, I don't want to say his name, but this is a federal prosecutor, proposed a way forward suggesting, no, you know what? We're going to say his name. AUSA Scotton proposed a way forward suggesting that at the next meeting between Belmonte and Whitehead, Belmonte asked Whitehead to ask Adams, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, to lift the stop work order that currently exists on the Villa Avenue property. Remember, y'all, Villa Avenue property. And this is the federal prosecutors telling him what to do. He also suggested he asked Whitehead to elaborate how exactly they can benefit and make money with the real estate projects they bring to Mayor Adams. Once again, y'all, it's all about the mayor. The federal prosecutors, under the leadership of Damian Williams, want the mayor of New York, and I am collateral damage. So this is all paperwork that you guys would never know about. And the jury don't know anything about this, and I'm going to show you why. Further, some more paperwork here. Bam. further, it says, at one time when Belmonte, and all of this was done on April the 22nd, and it says, at one time when Belmonte repaired Whitehead's wife's truck, Belmonte asked Whitehead how he afforded approximately $1.4 million in luxury vehicles, despite being a religious leader. Belmonte said, Whitehead stated, while he is a bishop, he used to be a dangerous person and was a convicted felon. Belmonte understood Whitehead to be a former member of the Mac Baller blood gang. I have never in my life been in a gang at all. Never in my life. However, they needed to pad these statements so therefore they can get into my life. They knew Brandon Belmonte was lying, and Brandon Belmonte knew he was lying. Listen to this. Approximately 1 week ago, so this is before April 22nd, Whitehead visited Belmonte and again engaged with Belmonte about the desire of real estate deals. Whitehead claimed he would FaceTime with Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. Whitehead then called Adams via FaceTime. So now Belmonte said, I, Bishop Whitehead, FaceTimed the mayor of New York. He says, Whitehead then called Adams via FaceTime. Eric Adams told Belmonte Whitehead engaged in big things in real estate. They, Adams, Whitehead, and Belmonte should all meet up. And Belmonte should do, business with Whitehead. So now Belmonte went to the FBI and told them that he spoke to the mayor of New York. It's right here, y'all. But the jury could not get this at all. You guys could not get this at all. This is exclusive paperwork. And this is why you're going to see I'm not guilty. It says, Adams said we should all meet up and Belmonte should do business with Whitehead. Following the FaceTime with Adams, Whitehead told Belmonte to sell Whitehead the buildings so he could receive city government money by transitioning the buildings into affordable housing or a homeless shelter, then sell the apartments on an open market and regular market value. These are all the things that Brandon Belmonte stated to the FBI. You know the FBI know he was lying. I know the FBI know that he was lying. And it was all a setup. And the federal prosecutors know that Brandon Belmonte was lying. And it was all a setup. And I'm going to show you how it was all a setup. So you guys are seeing paperwork that you've never seen before. And you'll be able to pull it up. So now that we got that in the way, right? So now, this is April 22nd. And now, on April 23rd, there is a recording with Brandon Belmonte. He still owed me the money, the $5,000. Everything that he was telling me, he never turned over no buildings, none of the performers of the building that he's supposed to turn over to me as far as the rent roll, never turned any of that over. So everything was lies. Me and him got into an argument. He knew what he was doing. And what he did was he had a federal agent, Thomas Ford, in the back seat recording us on April 23rd. On April the 29th, the day before my birthday, he came by my home because he told me that he's going to bring me the $5,000 and we're going to do a clean slate. I didn't know that the FBI was the one who gave him the $5,000. He got wired up, came to my home, and was asking me all different type of questions as far as how we're going to do business. and you guys will see the transcripts. What I said to him, he asked me, who do we have to pay money to under the table? And I told him, I've never paid a government official any money. Never took any government money. No PPP, no TTT, no EPT, whatever T's, whatever government, no grants, no nothing. I don't do anything illegal. So, Brandon Belmonte recorded me 6 to 8 times, and I'm guesstimating, but nothing less than 6, with his own devices, with his own phones, okay? This is important, y'all. This is important. So he recorded me on May 5th. He recorded me on May 12th twice. He recorded me on May 4th. So let's do it. May 4th, May 5th, twice on May 12th, once on May 18th, and I'm missing a date, but we're going to go with those right there for now. And he recorded, Brandon Belmonte recorded all of these recordings on his own. We don't know if he tampered with it. We don't know what he did with it. Period, point blank. Why am I telling y'all about this? So we fast forward. You guys want to know how I got the name Bling Bling Bishop. In the month of May 2022, I turned a young man in by the name of Abdullah. He allegedly killed somebody on the train, and I turned him in. Since I pulled up in a Rolls Royce and a Fendi coat on, they called me, a Fendi jacket on, they called me the Bling Bling Bishop. That's why I got the Bling Bling Bishop. 1 week later, the FBI was in front of my house. I went for my morning walk. They snatched my phone. They jumped out the car, said, you're not under arrest. We got a warrant for your phone. Snatched my phone, and they told me, they said, listen, we have a warrant for your church. I said, a warrant for my church? Why do you have a warrant for my church? And they said, do you want to talk? So I wanted to get out of the street. We went on the side of the house, and I said, what's going on? They said, well, they're guns. We heard that there were guns in your church. I said, guns in my church? I said, listen, I don't need you to kick the door down. I'll get somebody to open the door. And they said, listen, we don't want you. They said, the FBI said, we don't want you. We want the mayor, and we want you to help us get the mayor. And I said, what? I said, call my lawyer. We have nothing to talk about. Let me get in my phone so I can get my phone numbers out, and that's it. So I started to get the phone numbers out, go in the house, use one of my family members' phones to call the people that I needed to call to open up the church. It was early in the morning. They were still sleeping. Went back out there, federal agent, Tom Ford, still going on. Listen, you know, we just want you to work with us. I'm not working with you. That's it. It's not happening. I finally get the people to open up the door for them or whatever. He asked me, and this is count 4, y'all. I want y'all to get this. Thomas Ford asked me, do you have another cell phone that we can contact you on? No, call my lawyer. You can't contact me. Call my lawyer. And that's why I got charged for lying to a federal agent, because he asked me, do I have another phone? He didn't ask me that. He wanted me to be an informant to get information about the mayor of New York. And he asked me, come on, do you have another cell phone that we can reach you on so we can talk? No, I don't. So therefore, he told me he was going to make my life a living hell. That's what they told me. So that's why I got the lying charge. All right? So that y'all understand. So now I want to show you guys this. This is a search warrant. June 7th search warrant. And this is very key, y'all, because if it wasn't about the mayor, there's something called probable cause. In order for you to get a search warrant signed off by the judge, they want to know why. And it says, we want evidence of a personal or business relationship between Lamar Whitehead and any New York government official. Whitehead, whether local or state, or the staff member of any New York government official. So y'all just read the statement of Brandon Belmonte. Who do you think they're talking about? The mayor of New York. Next one. They wanna look at calls, FaceTime, text messages, or iMessages. Logs reflecting communication with New York government officials, whether local or state, or their staff members. Communication with or about New York government officials, whether local or state. Communication with or about state members of New York government officials, whether local or state. Contact information for New York government officials, whether local or state, or for their staff members. Then they want evidence of meetings with New York government official, whether local or state, or meetings with their staff members. Evidence concerning real estate investments transaction, whether or not completed. Evidence concerning the finances of Lamar Whitehead or any entities that Whitehead owns, manages, operates, or has invested in. They needed Brandon Belmonte's statements in order to get this search warrant. I need y'all to see this. And they know Brandon Belmonte is lying because they know they planted him in Bishop Whitehead's life. Let's go a little further. I want to just home in on one thing to you guys, okay? So on May the 5th, you have to understand, when you take this search warrant and you bring it to the federal judge, the FBI have to do something called an application affidavit that they present to the judge, where they cannot lie to the judge. So it says, on or about May 5th, 2022, the FBI recorded a FaceTime exchange between CS1, which is Brandon Belmonte, and Whitehead, with CS1 contacting Whitehead on the phone. During the call, Whitehead told CS1, I'm going to show you something so you understand who you got on your team. He was showed the call log of a second iPhone that listed both missed and connected phone calls between Whitehead and Official One, which is Eric Adams. Weather explained, I want to show you that, bro, so that you understand I ain't never going to play with you. He continued, don't think you're doing something that don't make sense. You know what that red means. And they quote, this was a missed call by the mayor of New York. He had called me and I had missed his call. So the reason why this is so significant is because the FBI said they were there and they recorded this whole conversation. The FBI lied. They were not there. And Brandon Belmonte was the one who recorded it from another hand. So the FBI went to the federal judge and lied on this search warrant and used this lie on 6 other search warrants. And this is why you do not see Tom Ford, the lead FBI agent that's over this case. That's why he could not testify. Because if he would have testified, we would have exposed him and showed the jury that he lied. So they hid and they did not call the FBI agent. And you're going to see that the reason why was because of these search warrants. You're also going to see that Brandon Belmonte did not take the stand. Why? If he was the one that gave you all this information, if he was the one that stated that I did all of these harsh things and that he spoke to the mayor and the mayor told him to do a business with me. We do big things and we're going to do all this stuff. He spoke to the mayor himself as per what he told the FBI. But yet, they did not use him as a witness. And also, they blocked me from calling him as a witness. Now, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So now, on June 8th, he was, Brandon Belmonte, interviewed by the FBI for another case on June 8th. However, while I was being shaken down and getting my phones taken that morning, isn't it coincidence? And we have documentation. Hold on. We have documentation of this right here. Documentation right here, where he was being interviewed on the same day that I was being, a search warrant was being executed, taking my phones. Fast forward, July 2022, July 24th, 2022, my church was robbed. 3 gunmen comes into my church, robs the church. The world ridiculed me. The world ridiculed me. And the world called me a liar. Everybody said I set the robbery up. You guys destroyed me. You guys destroyed my name. You destroyed my church. You embarrassed me. I think we're going to go a little longer because we got to get this out. You embarrassed me. You destroyed my ministry. Destroyed my name. You guys said that I set the robbery up. Across the world, not one pastor posted, "We're praying for you," because it was a complete debacle. Did Bishop Whitehead set the robbery up? But now you see that I was already being investigated. So if I would have set the robbery up, don't you think they would have charged me for that too? Because some of y'all still think I set the robbery up. Y'all hate so much what you don't understand. I'm a child of God and I love God. That's why I preach the way I preach. And I never took a salary. But don't you think now that you see that Brandon Belmonte had me under investigation from the beginning of 2022, don't you think that I would have been charged for this? Don't you think that? But you guys don't know this. But I'm here to tell you on Not Guilty that I never set the robbery up. And I've been being watched anyway and did not know. So the robbery happens. Everything goes viral. And I'm still, another search warrant hit me. And I'm still being investigated. And y'all say that it was an insurance scheme. Out of the 13 to 15 items, I don't know how many items, but it was up there. I only had insurance on 3 of them. So it wasn't insurance. And you guys destroyed my name. You ridiculed. You lied. You made a mockery. You made memes. You did everything. You did everything but tell the truth. Every media outlet destroyed my name. And then in September, 2 out of the 3 men was arrested. Nobody apologized. But lo and behold, the indictment dropped down on December the 19th, the week of Christmas. The bishop, known across the world. What better time for the FBI and the federal prosecutors to arrest the bishop on Christmas week. I need y'all to understand that all of this was strategic. All this was a strategy. All this was strategic. All this was a strategy to destroy the bishop, because I would not work with them to take down the mayor of New York. What are you talking about, Bishop? What are you talking about, Bishop? I'm so glad you asked me. So now, I was indicted. I want y'all to listen to this now. I want you to listen to this, and I want you to see how strategic the prosecutors are. Let's read it, y'all. The charges in this indictment arise from a course of conduct in which Lamar Whitehead, the defendant, sought to enrich himself through the use of both threats and falsehood. As part of this course of conduct, Whitehead made not only false representation in efforts to obtain loans, but also false promises that his victims' investments with Whitehead would benefit the victims financially. In fact, Whitehead, who leads a church in Brooklyn, New York, intended to and did defraud the victims by taking their money and other properties with no intentions of investing it in return. I want to read. I want to just keep reading this. Hold on. I want to get to Brandon Belmonte, because we're gonna do Pauline Anderson, count one, next episode. It says, in or about April and May 2022, Lamar Whitehead, the defendant, attempted to convince a businessman to lend Whitehead approximately $500,000 and give him a stake in certain real estate transaction. Remember now, y'all, it says attempt now. Now, in the statement that Brandon Belmonte gave to the FBI, he said, I did everything. He said, I did it. But now it's saying attempt. Whitehead told victim 2 that in exchange for this money and interest in real estate transactions, Whitehead would obtain favorable actions by the New York City government for victim 2, which is Brandon Belmonte. They still saying he's a victim. That would enrich both Whitehead and victim 2. When Whitehead knew that he had no ability to obtain such actions, despite that knowledge, Whitehead told victim 2 that they would make millions. So now the prosecutors switch everything. They're saying, now I promised Brandon Belmonte that I will give him favors with the mayor if he gives me $500,000 and real estate. And they said now that I knew that I couldn't pull that off. Well, let me ask you a question. Why would I have to pull it off if we just read a statement from Brandon Belmonte in April of 2022 where he says, approximately 1 week ago, Whitehead visited Belmonte and engaged with Belmonte about the desired real estate deals. Whitehead claimed he would FaceTime Mayor Adams. Whitehead then called Adams via FaceTime. Adams told Belmonte Whitehead engaged in big things. In real estate, Adams, Whitehead, Belmonte should all meet up, and Belmonte should do business with Whitehead. So if Brandon Belmonte said he spoke to the mayor of New York and you guys didn't have the paperwork, but I do, how then can the federal prosecutors now switch it months later, knowing that Belmonte told them this, and charge me for saying that I knew I couldn't do it? How do you change it up? Southern District of New York. You have a victim, but he's really an informant working for the FBI. Thought they was going to take the mayor of New York down by Bishop Whitehead, rolling over and being an informant. So now that didn't work, y'all change your whole indictment and charge me saying that Whitehead told victim 2 in exchange for this money and interest in real estate transaction, Whitehead would obtain favorable actions by New York City government for victim 2 that would enrich both Whitehead and victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, when Whitehead knew that he had no ability to obtain such actions. Despite that knowledge, Whitehead told victim 2 that they would make millions. So now they're saying that I tried to bamboozle Brandon Belmonte, knowing that I could not get the mayor to do something illegal. When, in turn, this investigation didn't start that way. And we got the paperwork. We have the paperwork. This investigation didn't start this way. Brandon Belmonte started the investigation with the FBI and the prosecutors, where he even said, what's his name? Here we go. He says, at the end of the meeting, AUSA Scotton proposed a way forward, suggesting that at the next meeting, Belmonte asked Whitehead to ask Adams to lift the stop work order up. To lift the stop work order that currently exists of that villa property. He also suggested he asked Whitehead to elaborate on how exactly they can benefit and make money with real estate projects they bring Adams as mayor. Now, another thing I want y'all to understand, right? AUSA Scotton and the other 2 prosecutors that started the case was relieved off the case. They removed themselves abruptly. Once they said to my, when I got arrested, they came to my attorney and said, listen, we need to work out a deal before we get into the computers. We got the computers out of his house and we need to work out a deal. And my lawyer said, Bishop Whitehead is not interested in no deals. And we don't care what you took. And do y'all know that not one fraud you document, not one fraud you anything, not one text message, nothing came out of the computers, nothing came off the phones. They took a ton of electronics. Nothing illegal came off of those devices. Nothing. So that's count 2. Then it says, near the beginning of the relationship, in the beginning of the relationship, victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, Lamar Whitehead, the defendant, also used threats of force to obtain $5,000 from the businessman owed by the victim 2. At the directions of law enforcement, victim 2 made the payment to Whitehead. So the money that I paid for the rental car that he promised me back, and we had an argument, they made that and created and said it was threats. So now you're seeing the federal prosecutor and the FBI, they switched everything. But you other YouTubers, you other bloggers, all you other media, and everybody else, y'all didn't have this paperwork. So y'all should all repent, number one. And you should all be sending me apologies after you hear this Not Guilty podcast. Now this should go viral. But we got a little more. Because the paperwork don't stop. We got a little more because I want to show y'all how the federal prosecutors manipulated and protected Brandon Belmonte, because now they know that we know that they set me up. So now they want to make sure that we can't get these statements in, because the only way we can get these statements in from Brandon Belmonte of how Bishop Whitehead got arrested, they started the investigation, the only way we can get these statements in is if he is a witness. So now they're not calling him as a witness. How don't you call your star witness, the one who started everything? Why isn't he not a witness? So let's move a little further. So now they got the search warrants, And we know that the FBI lied in 6 search warrants and stated that they recorded the exchange between me and Belmonte. And why is that important? Because if you look at the judge's decision, when we asked for suppression of the search warrants, the judge based her decision off of that May 5th recording, which was a lie. And you have to understand that that recording connected me with the mayor of New York, because they said that they saw me say that I spoke to the mayor and we were setting up a meeting. Bishop Whitehead wasn't doing anything illegal. I can sit down with the mayor because he's my mentee. I never promised nobody anything. But you want to know what? They're going to put that out there in the universe and make everybody believe that that's true, but it's not. Why? I need y'all to understand why. So now that you heard Brandon Belmonte's statement, now that you heard how he set me up, now that you heard all these things, right? Now the goal is to now protect Brandon Belmonte. They cannot have him come to court, because if he comes to court, they're going to lose this case bad. So now, that May 5th recording that the FBI lied on, the prosecutors, hold on. So this paperwork right here is called the FD 1087. FD 1087. Now, with this paperwork is supposed to show the chain of custody of whatever recordings that they said they had. So this paperwork identifies that, you know what? I need y'all to like, comment, and subscribe. So here we go. This FD 1087, it says May 5th, okay? So May 5th, that same lie that the FBI did on the search warrant, my lawyers call so they turned over the transcripts. They turned over the transcripts of those calls about 4 days before trial. We read the transcripts and we identified that the FBI was not the ones who recorded it. We wasn't able to see it through the evidence that they gave, because it was a video and there's no way you can see it. And we said the FBI didn't record this. Brandon Belmonte recorded this on May 5th. So how did he lie to 6 search warrants to different judges and say that he was the one that recorded it? The reason why the FBI had to lie was because they needed to make it make sense by saying, Judge, we saw Bishop Whitehead tell Brandon Belmonte that he spoke to the mayor. Now, that was essential because that's how they got the search warrants. I need y'all to understand that everything is technical and technicalities. So we said, listen, he did not record it. The prosecutor said, oh, you're lying. No. And then they found out that we were telling the truth. And when they did, they sent over the FD 1087. Now, this was 2 days before trial now that we got this. And what this identified was that on May 5th, not only Brandon Belmonte was the one who recorded it. Watch this, y'all. But this document shows that he held the recording for 19 days. We got it right here, y'all. This is and this is what other YouTubers, bloggers, the media, they don't have these documents. But you sign up for the Patreon and you'll be able to see these documents. These documents, nobody has them but Bishop Whitehead. So now the FBI lied on 6 search warrants, and each search warrant was given to a federal judge. And those recordings that they said that they made, they didn't make it. And listen to this. Brandon Belmonte made a recording on the 4th. turned it in on the 5th. He made a recording on the 5th. He didn't turn it over until May 24th, 19 days later. But watch this, y'all. He made 2 recordings on May 12th, and he turned those recordings over on May 13th. He made another recording on May 18th and didn't turn it over till May 24th. So you turned over 3 recordings that was done after May 5th before you turned over the one on May 5th. And that was the one that got the search warrant approved? Well, that was one of the recordings, but that was the main recording. And that was the one that the FBI lied on. So how could we have fought that? We were untimely, as the court say, to file a motion to suppress it. We just got this newly discovered evidence because we found out that FBI lied. So therefore, once again, Bishop Whitehead has to take that on the chin, right? So fast forward, y'all, because now I need y'all to understand that they have to now protect Brandon Belmonte. Why? Because Brandon Belmonte said, and quote, approximately 1 week ago, Whitehead visited Belmonte and again engaged with Belmonte about the desires of real estate. Whitehead claimed he would FaceTime with Adams. Whitehead then called Adams on FaceTime. Adams told Belmonte Whitehead engaged in big things in real estate. They, Adams, Whitehead, and Belmonte, should all meet up, and Belmonte should do business with Whitehead. Following the FaceTime with Adams, Whitehead told Belmonte to sell Whitehead the building so he could receive city government money by transitioning the buildings into affordable housing or homeless shelters, then sell the apartments on the open market at regular market value. But then, hold on, y'all, hold on. But then we have the indictment. And the indictment said something completely different. It says, on or about April or May 2022, Lamar Whitehead, the defendant, attempted to convince a businessman, Brandon Belmonte, to lend Whitehead approximately $500,000 and give him a stake in certain real estate transactions. Whitehead told victim 2 that in exchange for this money and interest in real estate transactions, Whitehead would obtain favorable actions by the New York City government for victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, that would enrich both Whitehead and victim 2. When Whitehead knew that he had no ability to obtain such actions, despite that knowledge, Whitehead told victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, that they would make millions. So the prosecutors did the old switcheroo. They set the bishop up, set him up. They had one narrative that Brandon Belmonte was a victim, but he really was an informant working with the FBI. He did what they told him to do, whatever they told him to do. And now that they knew that they couldn't get me to roll over and be an informant, they said, you want to know what? We got to change the narrative. And that's what they did in the indictment. But yet the jury didn't know this. The courts didn't know this because we couldn't get this in because now they got to protect Brandon Belmonte. Now, I'm going to close out on this one right here. So, Brandon Belmonte, I'm not mad at y'all. I need y'all to just apologize. That's it. That's it. So now, y'all hit like. I need y'all to comment, and I need y'all to subscribe. We need this to go viral, y'all. We need this to go viral. This is all paperwork. So now, the objective now, the prosecutors, they switched up prosecutors now. We have a whole new prosecutor team, right? We're about to start trial. They're going through their witnesses, and the judge asks us, well, who is the defense going to call? So I say, my defense said, we're calling the owners of this property that Brandon Belmonte claims that he owned. But we know that he never owned it. And we know that this was all a setup to take down the mayor of New York and Bishop Whitehead. So we want to call the actual owners of this multi-unit complex that Brandon Belmonte told the FBI and the prosecutors that he owned. So we are going to call a man by the name of Dino Tomasetti and also Andrew Lichtenstein. Okay? So all of this stop work order stuff and all of these things that he said he owned the property and that all we got to do is do this and do that, we want to call the actual owners of the property. So once we said that, that night when we left court, the prosecutors, remember, they got to protect their lie. They filed a motion to block us from calling the real owners of the properties that Brandon Belmonte lied on. Here we go. So it says, so they wrote, another thing, y'all. I want to read this. It says, the court's rulings precluded defense attack on victim 2. Credibility should not be disturbed. Even if the defendant seeks to call victim 2 as a witness. So they still calling Brandon Belmonte a victim, but he's really an informant. And the reason why they have to use it that way is because you got to go through more different legal proceedings to protect an informant than a victim. Okay? But I want to read that one more time, y'all, because this is a slippery slope. They said the court rulings precluded defense attacks on victim 2's credibility should not be disturbed. So I need y'all to understand that we weren't able to say anything about Brandon Belmonte during the entire trial. Did y'all know that? Because we were muzzled, because the prosecutors said that they're not calling him as a witness and there is no need for us to talk about Brandon Belmonte or even say anything about his credibility because he's not testifying. Now, I need y'all to understand that he was strategically arrested right before trial, a few months before trial. So therefore, now y'all going to see the whole picture. I'm telling y'all, this is a big time strategy, y'all. This is diabolical. And I need y'all to understand, without this paperwork, you guys was missing the truth. You were missing the truth. So now it says, so now that y'all know that we couldn't even talk about Brandon Belmonte at the trial. We couldn't even bring anything up. We couldn't go at his credibility. We couldn't call him a liar. We couldn't call him anything because we were precluded from saying anything about Belmonte. What happened to my defense, y'all? Do y'all see it breaking down right before your eyes? Right before your eyes. So now they're trying to snatch the owners of the property. So it says, as a general matter, a party can impeach its own witness. As a result, if the defendant were to call victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, at trial, the defense could at that time impeach victim 2's testimony. So this is what they're afraid of. Such impeachment would not be proper, however, unless and until victim 2 actually testifies. As it bears noting that the defendant cannot permissibly call a hostile witness for the sole purpose of impeachment him. So this is the letter motion that the prosecutors have put in to block us from calling Brandon Belmonte as a witness. So since he doesn't want to come in, it's called a hostile witness. So here you go. Listen to this. Strategy, prosecutors. Listen, y'all. In any event, the issue appears to be moot. After yesterday's conference, the government asked victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, counsel, what victim 2 intentions would be if victim 2 was subpoenaed to testify at trial. And counsel indicated that in light of charges pending against victim 2 in another district, victim 2 would invoke his Fifth Amendment privileges against self-incrimination rather than testify at this trial. So now, strategically, since he just got arrested, they're saying, oh, he's going to apply the fifth, which is to protect him from self-incrimination so it won't hurt him in the other charge. However, if you're not being asked questions as to anything outside of this case, it cannot hurt you. But they strategically arrested him. So therefore, he couldn't be a witness in my case. So they wouldn't be able to use this legal terminology. Listen, y'all, this is so strategic, y'all. This is so diabolical, and this is prosecution misconduct at its best. Here we go. It says, given this intention, the defense should not be permitted to call victims solely for the anticipation of invocation of the Fifth Amendment. So it says, if he's going to plead the fifth, then you should not allow him to testify in front of the jury and plead the fifth. And then they use a case called United States versus Dutchess. However, in United States versus Dutchess, for all you legal scholars, if you read it, it talks about another defendant in that same crime, right? That did not want to testify to incriminate himself because he already was okay with the police. So he's like, no. And then if you look at United States versus Guzman, another case where that it was a co-defendant, and the defendant wanted to call him to testify as a hostile witness. And he said, no, I already made a deal. So therefore, I am not incriminating myself, which you can plead the fifth. But Brandon Belmonte was not a co-defendant. Brandon Belmonte was the key witness how Bishop Whitehead was indicted. I'm almost done, y'all. I'm almost done. I just got to read this last things, and then we're going to go, and y'all, I got to gear up for episode 2, because I already told y'all this first one had to be hot, y'all. Now, y'all hit like. I need y'all to comment. I need you to say, I'm sorry, Bishop. I need you to make this to go viral, and I need you to subscribe. That's what I need, y'all. That's what I need. All right, so here we go. They say, the prosecutors say, they want to block Dino Tomasetti. They said Dino Tomasetti Jr., who would testify that he would own the property referred to in the recordings of the villa property, victim 2 discussed, with Brandon Belmonte discussed with the defendant, and that Tomasetti and not victim 2 sought to have a stop work order on the property lifted. Andrew Lichtenstein who would testify that he was a broker for another property that victim 2 discussed with the defendant, and the victim 2 did not own the property. So now they're admitting that Brandon Belmonte lied. They gotta protect the first statement that was given to them that they knew was a lie, that they knew it was a setup. They have to protect the investment. So now they saying, no, you can't have them. You can't let them come. So they write in their motion. They say, first, the anticipated testimony from Tomasetti and Lichtenstein about victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, lack of ownership of property he discussed with the defendant is irrelevant. See? Now they're saying it's irrelevant if he owned it or not. It's irrelevant whatever he told us to get Bishop Whitehead arrested. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Here we go. It's irrelevant and risk confusing the issues before the jury. So they're saying if the truth come out, it will confuse the jury. No, it will find Bishop Whitehead not guilty, and it will show the setup and the conspiracy to take down the mayor of New York and to take down Bishop Whitehead. That's what it will show. To be sure, victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, told the defendant that he needed assistance with problems involving properties that Tomasetti and Lichtenstein would apparently testify. Victim 2 did not really own. Oh, so the true owners are going to say, They don't know Brandon Belmonte. You want to know why? Because I spoke to the owners myself. And they said they don't know him. Why y'all think we was going to call them for a witness? I spoke to them. My team, we spoke to them. They said, yes, subpoena us and we will be there. We never heard of Brandon Belmonte in life. And the owner said, stop work order. We been got that taken care of before 2022 even came. So he lied in 2022. The stop work order was already taken care of in 2021. All of this was a lie. They said, yes, do what you need to do, and we will be there to tell the facts. Everything is public knowledge. I said, no problem. Here we go. So it says, to be sure, victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, told the defendant that he needed assistance with problems involving properties that Tomasetti and Lichtenstein would apparently testify that victim 2 did not really own. In which victim 2 tells the defendant, I have a stop work order on Villa. Lies, garbage, and trash, and they know it. They got to protect their investment. And the defendant responded that he could easily get a stop work order removed, lifted, provided he could go to the Mayor Adams and say, I own this. You see this, y'all? Lies, garbage, and trash. If I own a property and it has a stop work order and I get it for a discount, I'm going to ask whoever I need to ask, how do I need to get it done? What is the procedure? I'm not paying nobody under the table, but this is their narrative. So they say, but the possibility that victim 2, Brandon Belmonte, did not own Villa, which is the properties that he said he owned, or was not personally dealing with the stop work order of Villa, is irrelevant. So they saying, so what, he lied. That's irrelevant. This testimony is offered in support of effectively a factual impossibility defense. So they saying that we're coming to the to the jury saying it's impossible, which it is. But they saying you can't use that impossibility defense. Why? Once again, they're protecting a lie. Here we go. They say the defendant could not have been defrauding victim 2. They're saying Bishop Whitehead couldn't be defrauded victim 2 because even if the false promises of Mayor Adams assist with stop work orders and the like had been true, victim 2 did not own and therefore wouldn't have been able to convey the real estate under the discussion. So they're admitting, the prosecutors are admitting that they know he lied, but they're saying, so what? So what? And that's why they charged me with attempt. Listen to this. I want y'all to see the strategy. The strategy. It says, the problem with that defense is that it is unavailable as a matter of law. Indeed, completion of the fraud charge in account 2 was already factually impossible. So they said, I need y'all to hear this. The prosecutors are saying that it was factually already impossible. They knew this from the start because they know what he said in the beginning. It was all fake. But they want to take down the mayor of New York and they want to take down the bishop. All right, y'all. I'm almost done. Here you go. I want to read this last part. It says, indeed, completion of the fraud charged in count 2 was already factually impossible because victim 2 was working with the law enforcement and the defendant was essentially being caught in a sting. So now they're saying that the victim was actually an informant and it was a sting operation. Hold on. We never heard that before. Listen to this. It says that that is why count 2 is charged as an attempt wire fraud rather than a completed fraud. And hold on. If factually impossible, it is factually impossible. If factual impossibility is not a defense, if following the testimony tending to show that victim 2 could not have completed the real estate transaction the defendant was trying to induce is irrelevant and inadmissible. Permitting this testimony risks confusing the issues before the jury by incorrectly suggesting the impossibility is somehow a defense to count 2, and which it is not. Given its non-existent probative value and significant risk of jury confusion, this testimony should not therefore be excluded, under Rule 401 and Rule 03. Now, what they're saying is this. There's a sting now. I need 3 minutes and I'm done. They're saying it's a sting operation. So now my lawyers say a sting, we need now to reopen every motion that we ever filed because we never heard that it was a sting operation. We never heard it was a sting operation before. Never heard of it. And this is newly discovered evidence, and we want to open up everything back up because we thought that Brandon Belmonte was a victim as per what you said, but now we're hearing that he was an informant and this was a sting. So now it says, so they write a motion when to reply to our motion saying we want all the discovery, we want everything on this sting operation. So now they say, when the government put this motion in letter describing count 2 and 3 as a sting operation, it was making an analogy to explain to the court why those counts are charged as attempt crimes, not claiming that the defendant was caught up in a formal sting operation. Come on, y'all. Y'all just heard me read. You just heard me read what they said. Now they're saying that they didn't say that, and they're saying that it was an example. So now they're saying that the defendant's scheme to defraud victim 2 began before the FBI. So now they switching everything up. Y'all go on this, and y'all be able to see all of this on Patreon. Now, the last thing before the producer tells me that I'm done and to get off this podcast, I need to make it even more hot and heavy with more paperwork. So the courts said that that I cannot call Dino Tomasetti. I was prohibited from calling them, excluded from calling them, and that if I did call them, my defense would have to be entrapment. That's not my defense, because with an entrapment defense, I have to say that I committed a crime, which I didn't. And I wasn't doing that, so we couldn't call the owners. So what we were able to do, we were able to question Belmonte outside of the presence of the jury. The jury don't know about these questions. So listen to these questions and we're done. It says, because they said that he was just arrested in the Eastern District, so they wanted to hear the questions that we were asked. So as long as our questions doesn't have anything to do with the Eastern District, this should have been able to be put before the before the jury. So we asked, Mr. Belmonte, can you tell us, do you know Lamar Whitehead? Yes, I do. And can you tell us how you know Mr. Whitehead, Mr. Lamar Whitehead? Under the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Hold on now, y'all. How in the world can he say he's not answering the question when he has these statements that got me arrested? Then he says, so question from the defense. Can you tell us when you first met Mr. Whitehead? Under the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to answer questions. Can you tell us if you own a body shop? On advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to answer questions. Can you tell us, have you owned any businesses before? On advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. Can you tell us, did there come a time that you went to the United States Attorney's Office? Under the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer questions. Did Lamar Whitehead try to extort you for $5,000? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Did Lamar Whitehead try to get you to loan him $500,000 and promise you favors with the mayor of New York? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer questions. Now, that was both count 2 and count 3. He did not want to answer it. And the only thing that can happen to you is if you lied to the FBI, which you did, and they know it, and they are letting you do this to protect their interests. Did you tell the FBI that the mayor of New York told you to do business with Lamar Whitehead because he could do big things? Remember this, y'all. He said it. The prosecutor, objection, the court overruled. The prosecutor says, Your Honor, to the extent that the defendant plans to continue to ask questions and the witnesses continue to invoke, I'm not sure that we need to go through every single question if the rest of the substantial questions the witness intend to invoke. Well, the court said, well, I'll let this go on for a while. Obviously, we won't sit here all morning, but I'll let counsel continue to ask questions. So there was a question. I'm going to ask counsel to repeat the question. Sure. Did you tell the FBI that the mayor of New York told you to do business with Lamar Whitehead because he does big things? Is that right? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Have you owned any multi-unit buildings in the Bronx in 2022? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the questions. But he said in his statement that he did. He said all of these things, y'all. Were you ever the owner of 3160 Villa Avenue? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. That's the one that Dino Tomasetti owns, and that's the one with the stop work order that he said he owned. Did Lamar Whitehead ever tell you that he could remove a stop work order by calling the mayor and getting it removed? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Did you promise Lamar Whitehead $5,000 for a rental reimbursement? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Here we go, y'all. These recordings that he did, that he turned in 19 days later, 6 days later, 3 days later, right? We asked the question, did you tamper with any recordings when you were recording Mr. Whitehead for the FBI? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right. Was this sting operation with the FBI against the mayor of New York? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Do you have a proffer agreement for working with the FBI on this case? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Were all of the calls with the FBI consensual? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Did you make the recordings with the FBI? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Did the FBI tell you to make the recordings? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. What was the target of this investigation? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right not to answer the question. Do you have a cooperation agreement with respect to the case in the Eastern District? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. All right, y'all. Did Mr. Whitehead, Lamar Whitehead, try to or attempt to try to extort you for $5,000? Under the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. Last question. Did Lamar Whitehead ask you for $500,000 in exchange for a stake in real estate and promise you favors with the mayor? On the advice of my counsel, I'm invoking the Fifth Amendment right. The court says, okay, prosecutors, it's your turn. They ask one question. Mr. Belmonte, with respect to your interactions with Lamar Whitehead, are there any substantive questions to which you would not invoke your Fifth Amendment right? No, ma'am. I need y'all to like this. I need y'all to comment. I need you to subscribe. Bishop Lamar Whitehead is not guilty. I love y'all so much. Now, let's bring it home. Not Guilty. Like, comment, subscribe, because we got the paperwork. Tune in. Hold on, y'all. Y'all supposed to say happy birthday to me. Today my birthday. Come on, y'all. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. I'm 46, y'all. And I'm living my best life. God is amazing, y'all. Thank God for allowing me to have this 46th birthday. And thank you guys for celebrating it with me. Come on, y'all. Listen, let's clear the Bishop name, y'all. Let's tag, let's like, let's comment, let's subscribe, and let's make this go viral, y'all. You got the power to make it go viral. All these lies, all these mishaps, and now you see. Next episode, we're going to talk about Count 1, Pauline Anderson. And I want to show y'all a quick pick, just a quick little pitch, y'all. Rashid Anderson, her son, was a federal informant. And that was one of the motives. Oh, my goodness. Tune in, y'all. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Not Guilty. Deuces. 10 toes down.